Field trips are commonly thought of for young children. Many schools take students on field trips in elementary school. In reality, field trips can be a very meaningful tool in teaching, even to our peers if we can adapt them appropriately. Field trips are not only used for a fun day out of the classroom. These learning experiences are specifically formed to accomplish one or more of these 5 purposes, as stated by Berendt and Franklin. To provide first-hand experience, to stimulate interest and motivation in a subject, to add relevance to learning, to strengthen observation and perception skills, and to promote social development. Now let's watch a video describing how field trips are being used to accomplish the goals we just showed on the previous slide.
Every week, our students go on some type of learning expedition to somewhere in our community, whether students are on Main Street visiting a fire station and a hair salon to learn about physical and chemical changes, or whether they're studying the habitats of rainforest animals at the zoo. The learning that takes place in their classroom then comes to life through these expeditions.
We are partnered with 7 museums. We work with their educators to help enrich our curriculum and to find connections that are natural.
We went to the zoo for one of our learning expeditions. They offer a lot of rainforest animals, and we were able to also talk about map skills, as that's a standard that we need to cover. They were trying to find their animal on the map, understand what rainforest they were coming from, why different rainforests have different types of animals.
There's a big difference between a field trip and a learning expedition. We rarely, if ever, go through a whole entire museum. The point for the students is to go to see the exhibit that is connected with the curriculum that they're studying.
We go not only to the museums, some of our others have been just community partnerships. We go to Conosaga River. It's an opportunity to work with the Forestry Service. And we go snorkeling the river there. We learn about the diversity of fishes. That's a learning expedition that's kind of birthed out of just the culture of what can we find in our community that connects to what we're learning.
When we go on the learning expedition, we have people talk to us about our module, and they were informed ahead of time about our module, and then they can inform us on what we need to know and what we haven't learned yet.
I really like going on the learning expeditions and getting to interact with the actual things. Like when we went on the Trail of Tears, we got to walk and experience how it felt. When we got off the bus, we got a card with our Cherokee name and where we lived in Tennessee.
They went and talked with the historian about the passage and learned about the Cherokee's history and the decisions that were faced at that time.
But this is a space that can also tell us a lot about Chattanooga's indigenous past. It tells us about the Cherokee.
They actually went up to the walking bridge. One was the land route, one was the water route. When they finally got back to the school, they opened up their envelopes, and inside it there was a piece of paper that said if they survived or if they perished on the trail.
When we realized how hard it must have been, and really how hard the Cherokee had it, and how terrible it was to get forced off their lands.
The opportunities that we have to go outside of the classroom are absolutely rich. Giving the students all the same experience is where you begin to now have a discussion.
If you think about a student who's learning English as a second language, or a student who's lived in a high poverty situation who may not have had lots of these kind of life experiences, all of a sudden they're going to museums every week. So their vocabularies expand, their understanding of the world expands in a very significant way. Over time, what we basically discovered is that the world is our classroom, and that if our students see learning taking place everywhere, they become lifelong learners.
So as you can see, all 3 domains are used when using a field trip to teach. So cognitive thinking, affective or feeling, and psychomotor or skills. During a field trip, the learner is able to gather information. they are using conscious thought to listen and understand what is being taught. For example, hearing from a zoo expert that all penguins naturally live in the southern hemisphere. Using the affective domain during a field trip involves feeling and ideas of others as well as themselves. For example, children hearing from an animal activist about how penguins prefer to be in their natural home, like you want to be in your home. The psychomotor domain enhances the learner's skills. They're able to physically experience the material being taught. For example, having a child walk on a large floor map where the penguins live following teaching about that subject. There are definitely pros of using field trips to teach. These include using all three domains of learning, so the learner gets a better experience. It gets the learner excited for experiences. It increases their attention due to a new setting. And it improves the learner and teacher relationships along the way. But as with anything, there are also some cons to going on field trips. For example, short-term teaching is given, so reinforcement needs to be added following the trip. They can be easily distracted if other things are going on. And sometimes there can be transportation issues, which is real life. And those things are sometimes hard to solve. As mentioned earlier, field trips are not just for elementary school students. They can be used in healthcare organizations as well. For these examples, we will base it off of my current unit, the emergency room. By visiting other hospitals, our team is able to experience new processes before they take place in our own hospital. It allows us to experience it before we do it. We can visit a nursing home. I have found from talking to others in the emergency room that we often get frustrated with nurses in extended care facilities. If we could go and experience the environment, we could get a better idea of why some of the things are done a certain way. This can promote tolerance towards others in our profession. Staff in the emergency room often gets annoyed of the practices of nurses on other floors or units, such as putting off admissions or being unable to transport patients. Some of this could be combated with a field trip to those units for a day. We would be able to experience the admission process and gain an appreciation for the difference in our jobs. In my opinion, field trips are a great way to teach a learner something new. It gives a different environment and allows us to get our point across while including all three domains of learning.